There is a 5-word sentence that ancient Stoic philosophers, lived by centuries before modern psychology, ever coined the word attachment. It isn't a pickup line. It isn't a manipulation trick. It's a mental posture so simple you could say it under your breath in 10 seconds, and so powerful that the people who actually live by it become almost impossible to walk away from. The 5 words are these: I choose you. Need nothing. Stay with me, because by the time this video ends, you'll understand exactly why those words rewire the way people experience you, and why the most magnetic people you've ever met were quietly living this principle without ever naming it. Welcome back to Brain Rewired, the channel for men done being controlled by their own emotions and ready to build unshakable inner discipline. If this is your first time here, we take 2,000-year-old Stoic wisdom and turn it into tools you can use today, in your relationships, your career, and inside your own head. If that's the man you're becoming, hit subscribe, because this one is going to hit different. Let's start with the truth nobody wants to hear. Every time you've ever felt overlooked, unwanted, or replaceable, in that exact moment, you were needing something from someone else. Not wanting, needing. Those 2 words feel similar, but they live in completely different universes. Wanting is a preference. Needing is a dependency, and dependency has a smell. People pick it up before they can even explain what they're sensing. Think of the last person who made you slightly uncomfortable with how much they wanted your approval. The friend who replies in 4 seconds flat, at any hour, no matter what. The date who laughs too hard, agrees too fast, checks your face after every sentence to see if you're pleased. What did you feel toward them? Be honest. It wasn't attraction. It was a quiet urge to take a step back. Now picture the opposite. Someone unbothered by silence. Someone who can disagree with you without flinching, without needing your approval to feel okay about themselves. Someone who isn't performing for your approval, and somehow, without trying, you find yourself wanting theirs. This isn't just an old philosopher's hunch. Researchers studying attachment have found something almost identical. People who score high on what's called anxious attachment are consistently rated by others as less pleasant to be around socially, even when the actual content of what they say is the same as everyone else's. Neediness itself, not the person underneath it, is what gets penalized. Epictetus, a man who spent years of his life enslaved, owning nothing, not even his own body, became one of the most respected teachers in the ancient world. His core teaching was brutally simple. Suffering doesn't come from what happens to you. It comes from what you've convinced yourself you need in order to be okay. The second you decide you need someone's love or attention to feel whole, you've handed them the keys to your own peace. And people can feel when they're holding a set of keys they never asked for. It doesn't feel like a gift. It feels like weight. That's the trap hiding underneath most attraction advice. Neediness isn't unattractive because of some social rule. It's unattractive because it signals an unfinished person hunting for their missing half in someone else. And nobody, deep down, wants to be someone's missing half. People want to be chosen by someone who was already whole before they walked in the room. That's the entire idea packed into 5 words. But here's where it gets uncomfortable, because unpacking it means looking at exactly what you've been leaking dependency without realizing it. Quick gut check. Drop a single word in the comments. Are you a wanter or a needer in your relationships? You might surprise yourself. At the center of Stoic philosophy sits one concept most people have heard of, but almost nobody actually applies: the dichotomy of control. Epictetus divided the entire world into 2 categories: what's yours and what isn't. Your judgments, your effort, your reactions, your choices, yours. Everyone else's feelings, decisions, and reactions, not yours. Not now, not ever, no matter how badly you want them to be. Here's where it gets personal. Whether someone's attracted to you, whether they text back, whether they stay, none of that has ever been within your control. Social psychologists who study attraction have shown that a huge part of what draws two people together comes down to whether the relationship feels rewarding, whether it reduces anxiety, builds self-esteem, or just feels good to be near. Nobody signs up to be someone's anxiety reduction machine. That's exhausting on both ends. You can be generous, funny, consistent, and kind, and the final call still belongs entirely to another person's heart. Most people spend their whole lives fighting that fact. They try to force the uncontrollable through over-texting, over-explaining, over-performing a version of themselves they think will finally be acceptable. Every one of those efforts is a rope thrown at smoke. You can't grip what was never yours to hold. The Stoics didn't treat this as bad news. They treated it as freedom. If someone else's affection was never mine to control, then my peace was never supposed to depend on it. And if my peace doesn't depend on it, I'm finally free to want that affection fully, without the desperation, because I no longer need it to feel okay. That's the whole mechanism behind I choose you. Choosing lives in the part of life you actually control. Your own action, your own presence. Need nothing is the release of everything that was never yours to grip, their reaction, their timing, their choice. Separate those two, and something shifts internally almost immediately. The anxiety drains out. You stop performing. You stop rehearsing texts. You stop refreshing your phone every few minutes. And ironically, that calm, and in journal entries he never intended anyone else to read, he reminded himself again and again that real found in his own judgment, never in the praise or affection of other people. If the most powerful man alive couldn't weigh about him, what makes any of us think we can? The thing you've been chasing, being wanted. But because chasing itself broadcasts the very lack you're trying to hide. Because this is where most guys get it half right and wonder, I choose you. This isn't passive. This is an act of will. Notice it doesn't say need. It doesn't say can't live without. It says choose. Choosing implies options. It implies you're a person with a full life and other paths available. There's a real difference between someone who says, I choose you from a place of abundance. Carries far more weight than a gift given as a transaction hoping for something back. Give your presence as a genuine decision. Sitting with themselves in silence and discovering they can survive there. Needing nothing doesn't mean you're cold or checked out. It means your sense of worth doesn't collapse based on someone else's response. If they walk away, you'll feel it. Stoicism never asked anyone to numb real emotion, but you won't shatter. You won't spiral into believing you're unworthy because one person, in one moment, chose differently than you hoped. The Stoics had a word for this, apatheia, often mistranslated as apathy, but it actually means freedom from being enslaved by destructive emotion. It's not the absence of feeling. It's the absence of being controlled by feeling. Master that, and you stop bringing desperation into your relationships. And desperation, more than anything else, is what kills attraction the fastest. Put both halves together, and you get one posture for every relationship in your life. Full presence, zero dependency. Real desire, zero desperation. Genuine care with no collapse if it isn't returned. That's what actually makes someone magnetic. Not the loud, performative confidence flooding social media, but the quiet kind that's already made peace with itself, with or without anyone else's approval. If that just hit you somewhere real, drop a like right now. It helps this reach the next guy who needs to hear it today. Understanding this and actually living it are two different achievements. So here's how you build it. 3 moves, starting today. First, build a life that doesn't orbit one person. Cultivate your own interests, your own discipline, your own sense of direction that has nothing to do with whether one specific person chooses you. When your entire emotional world revolves around a single relationship, you've handed that person power no one should be carrying. Ask yourself honestly, if this ended tomorrow, would you still recognize yourself? Still have a rhythm, a purpose, a life? If the honest answer is no, that's not proof you love deeply. It's proof you've quietly outsourced your identity. That's the most fixable project available to you, starting today. Second, build the pause and use it to check your own cravings. Epictetus trained his students to insert a gap between what happens and how they react. Someone goes quiet for a few hours. The untrained mind spirals immediately. They don't like me. I said something wrong. I need to fix this now. The trained mind pauses and asks one question. Is this fact or is this fear wearing a disguise? 9 times out of 10, it's fear. In that same pause, ask what Seneca would have asked. Is this desire proportional? Or has my mind blown this person up into something they were never built to carry? That single pause does double duty. It catches the spiral, and it right-sizes the craving before it runs away with you. Third, separate effort from outcome. Out loud if you have to. Before a date, a difficult conversation, a message that actually matters. Say to yourself, I choose to show up fully here. What happens after is not mine to control. This isn't a magic phrase. It's a nervous system reset that moves you from grasping into grounded presence. And presence, more than any clever line or perfect outfit, is what people actually feel when they're near you. One more thing worth training deliberately. Solitude. The Stoics treated time alone with their own mind as practice, not punishment. Seneca drew a hard line between being alone and being lonely. One is a chosen retreat, the other is anxious avoidance. If solitude feels unbearable to you, that discomfort is worth investigating, because it usually reveals exactly where your sense of self has become too dependent on outside company to survive quiet. The man who can sit in an empty room at peace with his own thoughts is the same man who can sit across from someone he wants without collapsing into performance. Same skill, 2 different rooms. If you've made it this far, you're not here to watch another video about confidence. You're here to actually build it. So subscribe now, because this channel exists for exactly that. Let me leave you with one picture that ties this whole thing together. A man, call him David, spent years chasing approval, said yes to every request, agreed with every opinion from people he wanted to impress, believed enough accumulated effort would eventually earn him respect. It never quite worked. People liked him in a mild, forgettable way. They never truly wanted him around, because on some level they could feel he needed their approval more than he trusted his own judgment. In relationships, the same pattern repeated. He'd meet someone he was drawn to, and within days, a quiet panic would set in, a fear of losing them before he'd even really had them. That fear drove the overextending, constant texts, canceled plans to accommodate theirs, agreeing to things he didn't actually want, all in an unconscious bid to become impossible to leave. And every time, the person eventually drifted, not because David was unkind, because his desperation, however well-intentioned, was exhausting to be near. It asked for something they never agreed to give, responsibility for his entire sense of worth. After a hard breakup, David found Stoic philosophy almost by accident. He read that other people's judgments were never his to control. He read that praise and blame are both unreliable, fleeting things to build a life on. He read that cravings inflated by fear will always cost more than they're worth. Slowly, Deliberately, he rebuilt. He found interests that had nothing to do with anyone's approval. He practiced the pause before reacting to silence. He learned to sit alone without reaching for his phone to fill the discomfort. Nothing changed overnight, but it changed. The quality of attention he received in relationships improved, because what he was offering had shifted from desperation to presence. He didn't get colder. If anything, he cared more, because his care was no longer tangled up with fear. He just stopped needing it reciprocated to feel like a whole person. Eventually, he met someone new, and before things got serious, he found himself repeating a version of those 5 words internally, not as a performance, but as lived truth. I choose you, need nothing. He wanted the connection deeply, and he was genuinely at peace with the possibility it might not go the way he hoped. That peace was the exact thing the other person felt most strongly in his presence. Not a technique, just the quiet weight of a man who'd already stopped needing the world to hand him proof of his own worth. That's the shift available to you, starting with your very next conversation. 5 words. I choose you. Need nothing. Not a script for a first date. A complete way of living, built on foundations laid by a man in chains and a man on a throne, both of whom understood the same simple truth. Most people believe being chosen requires convincing, chasing, performing. The truth runs the opposite direction. Being genuinely chosen by a partner, a friend, life itself only becomes possible once you've already chosen yourself, without waiting on anyone's permission to do it. You are not half of something out looking for your missing piece. You are whole, capable of choosing fully and caring deeply while staying completely intact, no matter what any one person decides to do with that choice. If this gave you something real to sit with, like the video so it reaches the next guy who needs it today. Subscribe to Brain Rewired because we go deeper into this every week. And drop a comment. Which of the 5 words hit harder for you? Choose or nothing. I read every comment. Until next time, choose deeply, need nothing, and carry yourself like a man who already knows his own worth.